The evening air carried the lingering notes of Rachmaninoff as the last members of the audience filed out of Harrington Concert Hall. The magnificent space, with its gleaming wooden floors and crystal chandeliers, slowly emptied until only the cleaning staff remained. Among them was Lily Chen, a woman in her early 40s with gentle eyes that crinkled at the corners when she smiled. Lily had worked as a janitor at Harrington for almost 7 years now. She moved through the concert hall with practiced efficiency, gathering discarded programs and straightening chairs. Her movements were quiet and unassuming, much like her presence in life. She wore her dark hair pulled back in a simple bun, her uniform neat but unremarkable. Most people looked right through her as if she were part of the furniture, but Lily noticed everything. She noticed how the third row, 5th seat from the left, had a loose screw that needed tightening. She noticed which patrons left their seats the messiest and which ones took the time to gather their belongings properly. And she especially noticed the grand piano that stood proudly at center stage, bathed in the soft glow of the safety lights that remained on after hours. That piano was her secret joy. Tonight, after finishing the main hall, Lily wheeled her cleaning cart toward the backstage area. The concert had featured Thomas Reed, a pianist whose fame had skyrocketed in recent years. His technical skills were unmatched, earning him the nickname The Machine among critics who both praised his precision and questioned his emotional depth. Reed was in the middle of a 3-week residency at Harrington, performing a series of challenging concerts that had sold out months in advance. Posters of his stern face lined the hallways, his intense gaze following visitors as they walked by. In person, Reed was even more intimidating, tall and lean with sharp features and an air of impatience that kept most staff members at a distance. As Lily turned the corner toward the green room, she heard voices. Reed and several well-dressed people were laughing loudly, celebrating the night's performance with expensive champagne. She hesitated, not wanting to intrude, but knowing the room needed to be cleaned before morning. "I'll come back later," she whispered to herself, turning her cart around. Just then, Reed's voice boomed from the doorway. "You can clean now. We're heading to the lounge anyway." Lily nodded quickly, keeping her eyes down. "Yes, sir." "Thank you." The group filed past her, trailing designer perfumes and loud conversations. One woman brushed against Lily's cart, spilling some cleaning supplies but didn't seem to notice. Lily quietly picked them up, used to being invisible. Once they left, she entered the green room and began her routine. Empty glasses littered every surface, and someone had spilled red wine on the cream-colored sofa. Lily sighed softly but set to work without complaint. This was her job, after all. An hour later, with the green room spotless, Lily found herself drawn back to the main hall. The building was nearly empty now, just her and a security guard named Joe who was doing his rounds on the lower level. This was her favorite time, when the hall belonged to the silence. She walked slowly toward the grand piano, a magnificent Steinway that had been played by some of the greatest musicians in the world. In the dim light, it seemed to call to her, its polished surface reflecting the soft emergency lights. Lily approached it cautiously, as she did every night, drawn by a force she couldn't explain. Her hands hovered over the keys, not touching, just feeling the energy that seemed to radiate from them. Her fingers trembled slightly. "Would you like to play it?" The voice startled her so badly that Lily nearly knocked over a nearby music stand. She spun around to find Thomas Reed standing at the edge of the stage, watching her with curious eyes. I'm so sorry," she stammered, backing away from the piano. "I wasn't going to touch it, I promise." Reed tilted his head, studying her with unexpected interest. "But you want to, don't you? I've seen how you look at it." Lily felt her cheeks burn with embarrassment. She hadn't realized anyone had noticed her nightly ritual. "It's all right," she said quickly, reaching for her cloth to wipe down the piano's surface. "I'm just here to clean." Reed stepped closer, his tall figure casting a long shadow across the stage. Up close, Lily could see the fine lines around his eyes that his publicity photos carefully edited out. He looked tired. "You look at it like you know it," he said, his voice softer now. "Like you understand what it is." Lily kept her eyes on the cloth in her hands. "It's a beautiful instrument." "Yes, but it's more than that to you, isn't it?" Reed pressed, leaning against the piano. "Do you play?" The question hung in the air between them. Lily felt a familiar tightness in her chest, memories threatening to surface that she'd spent years pushing down. "I used to," she admitted finally, "a long time ago." Reed's eyebrows rose slightly, the first genuine expression of surprise Lily had seen on his face. Before he could respond, a voice called from the back of the hall. "Thomas, what's keeping you?" "The car's waiting." Reed glanced over his shoulder at a sharp-featured woman tapping her expensive watch. "Just a minute, Vivian." He turned back to Lily. "I have to go, but I'm curious now." He pulled something from his pocket and placed it on the piano, a backstage pass. "Come to tomorrow's rehearsal. No one will mind." Before Lily could protest, he strode off the stage, leaving her staring at the small laminated card. Her hand shook as she picked it up, overwhelmed by the unexpected invitation. That night, Lily barely slept. In her small apartment across town, she paced the worn carpet, thinking about the piano and Thomas Reed's invitation. Her gaze kept drifting to the closet in the corner of her bedroom, where a cardboard box sat untouched for years. After hours of restless tossing, Lily finally got up and opened the closet door. The box was dusty, pushed far back behind winter coats and shoes. She pulled it out carefully and sat cross-legged on the floor, staring at it for several long minutes before finding the courage to lift the lid. Inside were remnants of another life. Faded concert programs, newspaper clippings in a language few around here could read, and photographs of a younger Lily seated at various pianos, her face bright with passion and promise. At the bottom of the box lay a worn leather folder containing yellowed sheet music, many pages marked with pencil notes in her handwriting. Her fingers traced the notes on the page, and in her mind she could hear the music as clearly as if it were playing in the room. It had been 12 years since she'd touched a piano. 12 years since the disaster that had ended her once promising career and sent her fleeing across the world to start over where no one knew her name or her shame. Morning came too quickly. Lily dressed for work as usual but slipped the backstage pass into her pocket. She told herself she wouldn't use it, that it was better to stay invisible to keep the past buried where it belonged. Yet as her bus approached Harrington Hall, her hand kept touching the pass like a talisman. The morning cleaning shift went by in a blur. Lily moved through her tasks mechanically, her mind elsewhere. At noon, when the hall would normally be quiet, musicians began arriving for Reed's rehearsal. Lily watched from a distance as they set up, tuning instruments and arranging scores. Thomas Reed arrived last, striding confidently to the piano. He scanned the hall briefly, and Lily ducked behind a curtain, her heart racing. What was she doing here? This wasn't her world anymore. As the rehearsal began, Lily found herself unable to leave. Hidden in the shadows, she closed her eyes and let the music wash over her. Reed was playing Chopin's Ballet No. 1, a piece she knew intimately. His technique was flawless, each note precisely where it should be, the tempo perfect. Yet something was missing. The rehearsal continued for 2 hours. Lily remained hidden, listening. When it ended and the musicians began to pack up, she turned to slip away unnoticed. "You came, but you didn't use the pass." Lily froze. Reed stood a few feet away, watching her with those intense eyes. I didn't want to disturb anyone," she said quietly. Reed studied her for a moment. "What did you think?" The question caught her off guard. No one had asked for her opinion on music in years. "It was very precise," she said carefully. A slight frown crossed his face. "But," Lily looked down, "it's not my place to say." "I'm asking for your opinion," Reed insisted, stepping closer. "Something's been off in that piece for weeks. I can feel it, but I can't fix it." Lily felt trapped between honesty and politeness. "It's technically perfect," she said finally. "But it doesn't move you," Reed finished for her. Their eyes met, and in that moment something shifted between them. A mutual recognition, musician to musician, not famous performer to cleaning lady. "Would you come to the reception tonight?" Reed asked suddenly. After the performance, Lily's eyes widened. "I'll be working. After you finish, then. My guests usually stay late." He smiled, though it didn't quite reach his eyes. "I have a feeling you might bring something interesting to the conversation." Before she could respond, his manager appeared, clipboard in hand, whisking him away to his next appointment. Lily stood rooted to the spot, her mind racing with possibilities and fears. That evening, as she cleaned around the chattering guests at the reception, Lily felt Reed's eyes following her occasionally. He was surrounded by admirers and critics, all eager for his attention, yet he seemed somewhat detached from their praise. Little did Lily know that what had begun as a famous, Pianist's casual curiosity, would soon turn into something neither of them expected, a moment that would change both their lives, forever. The reception following, Thomas Reed's performance buzzed with energy. Well-dressed people filled the elegant room, their voices rising and falling like waves as they discussed the concert. Crystal glasses clinked, expensive perfumes mingled in the air, and at the center of it all stood Reed himself, surrounded by admirers. Lily worked quietly along the edges of the room, emptying small trash bins and wiping down surfaces. She had changed into her freshest uniform shirt after finishing the main cleaning duties, and had even taken a moment to smooth her hair in the staff restroom. Still, she felt painfully out of place among the glittering crowd. Did you hear his interpretation of the third movement? Absolutely groundbreaking, a woman in a red dress declared loudly. Technical perfection as always. Her companion agreed, swirling his wine. Though I sometimes wonder if there's something missing. Lily kept her eyes down, focusing on collecting discarded napkins, but her ears caught every word of the musical discussion. The man had put into words what she herself had felt during the rehearsal. Reed's playing was flawless but somehow hollow, like a beautiful shell with nothing inside. As the evening wore on, the crowd thinned slightly. Lily noticed Reed's gaze finding her occasionally across the room, though he made no move to approach her. Perhaps he had forgotten his invitation or regretted it. She told herself it was for the best and continued with her work. Another magnificent performance, Thomas. A large man with a booming voice clapped Reed on the shoulder. He was clearly someone important. The concert hall director, Lily realized. You've outdone yourself again. Reed nodded politely. Thank you, Howard. I'm glad you enjoyed it. Enjoyed it? My dear boy, you've set a new standard. No one plays with such precision. Lily couldn't help but notice the slight tightening around Reed's eyes. He smiled, but something in his expression suggested the praise didn't satisfy him. The clock ticked past 11. Most of the guests had left, but a small circle remained around Reed. The director, a music critic from the local paper, Reed's manager Vivian, and a couple of wealthy patrons who had sponsored the concert series. They had moved to the corner of the room where comfortable chairs were arranged around a smaller piano. Not the magnificent Steinway from the main stage, but still a fine instrument. Lily had nearly finished her tasks. She should leave, go home to her small apartment and try to forget this strange day. Yet something kept her there, moving slowly, finding little jobs to extend her time, a spill that needed extra attention, a window that could use another wipe. Ah, there she is. Reed's voice cut through her thoughts. He was looking directly at her, gesturing for her to come over. The small group turned to stare, curiosity and surprise on their faces. Lily froze, her cleaning cloth clutched in her suddenly damp hand. Come join us, Reed called again, more insistently. Lily felt heat rising to her cheeks as she slowly approached the group. Up close, their curious stares were even more uncomfortable. This is, Reed began, then paused, frowning slightly. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Lily, she said softly. Lily Chen. Lily works here, Reed explained to the others. She's part of the cleaning staff. The director nodded politely but looked confused. Vivian didn't bother hiding her annoyance, checking her watch pointedly. Thomas, we should be going. You have that interview tomorrow morning. Reed ignored her. Lily used to play piano, he said, watching her face carefully. The statement hung in the air. Lily wished the floor would open up and swallow her. This had been a mistake. She should never have come. How interesting, the critic said after an awkward silence, his tone suggesting it was anything but. Where did you study? The director asked, making an effort at politeness. It was a long time ago, Lily said quietly. In Shanghai. Shanghai Conservatory? The critic perked up slightly. That's a respectable institution. Lily nodded but offered nothing more. The pain of those memories was still too sharp even after all these years. Why don't you play something for us? Reed suddenly suggested. 5 pairs of eyes turned to her. Lily took a step back, shaking her head. Oh no, I couldn't. I haven't played in years. Come now, Reed pressed, a strange light in his eyes. Just a short piece. Something simple. Thomas, this is inappropriate, Vivian hissed. The poor woman is working, and we really need to go. 5 minutes, Reed insisted. He turned to Lily. Please. I'm curious. The way he looked at her made Lily think this was more than casual curiosity. There was an intensity to his request that she didn't understand. Was he mocking her? Did he expect her to embarrass herself? Maybe the lady doesn't want to play, the director said, looking uncomfortable. And it's getting late. Just one piece, Reed said, his eyes still fixed on Lily. He gestured to the piano. Unless you're afraid? There it was, a challenge with just a hint of condescension. Lily recognized it in his tone, in the slight curve of his mouth. He didn't expect her to be any good. This was entertainment for him and his friends, a little joke at her expense. Something stirred inside Lily, something she hadn't felt in years. Pride, perhaps, or defiance. One short piece, she heard herself say. The critic raised his eyebrows. Vivian rolled her eyes. The director looked like he was trying to decide if he should stop this uncomfortable scene. Lily set down her cleaning cloth and slowly approached the piano. Her heart hammered in her chest so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. 12 years. It had been 12 years since she had touched a piano. She sat down carefully, adjusting the bench by habit. Her hands hovered over the keys, trembling slightly. What could she possibly play? Her mind went blank with panic. Then her fingers touched the cool ivory and something shifted inside her. The keys felt like old friends welcoming her home after a long journey. Without consciously deciding, she began to play the opening notes of Chopin's Nocturne in E-flat major, Op. 9, No. 2. The first few notes came out hesitantly, her fingers stiff and unpracticed. But as the familiar melody flowed through her, muscle memory began to take over. The music had lived inside her all these years, waiting patiently. The room fell silent except for the gentle notes floating through the air. Lily closed her eyes, letting herself be carried away. She forgot about the watching eyes, about her uniform, about the years of silence. There was only the music speaking through her hands. The piece was simple compared to what Reed had played on stage, but in Lily's hands, it came alive with a tender expressiveness that filled the room. Each phrase breathed and sighed, telling a story of longing and quiet hope. When the final notes faded, Lily kept her eyes closed for a moment, afraid to break the spell. Then she heard it. A sharp intake of breath from someone nearby. She opened her eyes to find Reed staring at her, his expression unreadable. The others looked stunned. Well, the critic said finally, clearing his throat. That was unexpected. Where did you learn to play like that? The director asked, genuine curiosity in his voice. Lily stood up quickly, embarrassment flooding back. I should go. It's late. Wait, Reed said, stepping forward. The mocking tone was gone from his voice. That was beautiful. Lily couldn't meet his eyes. The moment of courage had passed, leaving her feeling exposed and vulnerable. She grabbed her cleaning cloth, needing something familiar to hold on to. You have a gift, Reed continued more insistently. That wasn't just technique. You made the music breathe. Thomas is right, the critic said, studying Lily with new interest. Your phrasing was exquisite, almost like the Yannick Ostrovsky's teaching, Reed finished. You studied under him, didn't you? In Shanghai? Lily's head snapped up in surprise. How did you know? The way you shaped the left-hand arpeggios. That's his signature approach. Reed was looking at her differently now with genuine respect. He rarely accepted students. You must have been exceptional. The mention of her old teacher brought a flood of memories, grueling practice sessions, rare words of praise, the thrill of mastering a difficult passage. And then, the terrible day that ended everything. It was a long time ago, Lily repeated softly. But why are you... The director gestured vaguely at her uniform, clearly confused about how someone with her talent ended up cleaning concert halls. Vivian stepped forward, her patience clearly exhausted. This has been fascinating, but we really must go. Thomas has commitments. Reed ignored her again. Play something else, he said to Lily. Not a request this time, but not quite a command either. Something in between, an eager curiosity. Lily shook her head. I really should go. Tomorrow, Reed said suddenly. Come to my private rehearsal tomorrow. Just me, no orchestra. 2:00. Vivian made a sound of exasperation. Thomas, your schedule is full tomorrow. I'll make time, he said, not taking his eyes off Lily. Will you come? Lily hesitated. Part of her wanted to run away and never return, to go back to the safety of invisibility. But another part, a part she thought had died years ago, was awakening, stretching toward the light like a plant too long kept in darkness. I don't know, she said honestly. Reed nodded as if he understood her fear. Think about it. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a card. My private number. In case you decide to come. Lily took the card automatically, her mind spinning. The small group was watching her with a mixture of curiosity and confusion. Good night, Lily Chen, Reed said softly. Thank you for the music. As Lily walked home that night, the cool air clearing her head, she felt as if she had stepped into someone else's life. Her fingers still tingled from touching the piano, and in her mind music played that had been silent for far too long. The card Reed had given her seemed to burn in her pocket. A door opening to her past, or perhaps to a future she had never dared to imagine. What would happen if she walked through it? Lily barely slept that night. She lay awake, staring at the ceiling of her small apartment, the events of the evening playing over and over in her mind. Her fingers moved unconsciously, tracing the notes of the nocturne in the darkness. She had played. After 12 years of silence, she had played again. Morning came with pale sunlight filtering through her thin curtains. Lily got up and made tea, her movements mechanical. On her kitchen table sat Thomas Reed's business card, where she had placed it the night before. She stared at it while sipping her tea, the elegant black letters seeming to float on the cream-colored cardstock. Should she go? The question circled in her mind like a restless bird. What good could possibly come from reopening old wounds? She had built a life here. Simple, quiet, safe. Playing last night had been a mistake, a moment of weakness that had cracked the protective shell she'd built around herself. And yet, for those few minutes at the piano, she had felt truly alive again. The music had flowed through her like water breaking through a dam, washing away years of dust and silence. Lily picked up the card, then set it down again. She had a shift at the concert hall starting at noon. She would go to work, do her job, and forget about Thomas Reed and his invitation. That was the sensible thing to do. But when noon came, and Lily pushed her cleaning cart through the familiar hallways of Harrington Hall, she found herself listening for piano music, her heart jumping at every distant note. The main hall was being prepared for that evening's concert, stagehands moving equipment and adjusting lights. No sign of Reed. He's in the private rehearsal room, a voice said, making Lily jump. Joe, the security guard, gave her a knowing smile. If you're looking for Mr. Reed, he asked if you'd come in today. Heat rushed to Lily's face. I'm just doing my job. Joe nodded, but his eyes were kind. Room 204 upstairs. He's been asking about you. Lily mumbled her thanks and hurried away, embarrassed. Had everyone noticed her playing last night? Were they all talking about it? The thought made her stomach clench. She focused on her cleaning duties, working methodically through the rooms on her list, deliberately avoiding the second floor. 1 o'clock came and went. Then 1:30. At 1:45, Lily found herself standing in the stairwell, her hand on the railing, looking up toward the second floor. She should just go home. Call in sick for the rest of her shift. Forget this whole strange interlude. Instead, she climbed the stairs. Room 204 was at the end of a quiet hallway. As Lily approached, she heard piano music floating through the door, which was slightly ajar. She recognized the piece immediately, Ballade No. 1 in G minor, the same one Reed had played in yesterday's rehearsal. His technique was flawless as always, each note precisely where it should be, but something still seemed missing. The music stopped abruptly. Lily heard a frustrated sigh, then the sound of a pencil scratching on paper. Then silence. She stood frozen, suddenly unsure. Should she not walk away? While she hesitated, the door swung open and there stood Thomas Reed. You came, he said, a smile spreading across his face. Not the practiced public smile she had seen him give his admirers, but something more genuine. Lily nodded, unable to find her voice. Come in. Reed stepped aside, gesturing to the room. It was smaller than she had expected. Just a grand piano, a few chairs, and large windows that filled the space with afternoon light. Lily entered hesitantly, feeling like an intruder. I shouldn't stay long. I have work to finish. I spoke to your supervisor, Reed said, closing the door. You have the afternoon off. Lily stared at him, alarmed. You did what? I need those hours. With pay, Reed added quickly. I explained that I needed your assistance. But why? Lily asked, bewildered. What could you possibly need from me? Reed moved to the piano bench and sat down, motioning for her to take a chair nearby. I need your ears. Your insight. When Lily looked confused, he continued. You heard something in my playing yesterday, didn't you? Something missing. She looked away, uncomfortable. It's not my place to judge. You're Thomas Reed. You've played for presidents and kings. And you studied under Yannick Ostrovsky, one of the greatest teachers of our time. Reed leaned forward, his eyes intense. Tell me what you heard. Lily hesitated. How could she explain what she had felt? Your playing is perfect, she began carefully. But, she searched for the right words. Music isn't about perfection. It's about feeling, about life. Reed didn't seem offended. If anything, he looked relieved. That's what the critics have been saying for years, though not so kindly. Technical brilliance without soul. Perfect execution lacking human touch. He ran his fingers lightly over the keys without pressing them. I've tried everything. Different techniques, different interpretations. Nothing works. Lily studied him, seeing past the famous exterior to the frustrated artist beneath. When you play, she said slowly, what do you think about? The notes. The tempo. Making sure every element is precisely correct. And not the story the music is telling. Reed frowned. Music doesn't tell stories. It's mathematical, structured. Lily shook her head, surprised by his response. Music is life. Joy and sorrow. Love and loss. Without that, it's just noise. Something flickered in Reed's eyes. Confusion, perhaps, or curiosity. Show me, he said, standing up from the bench. Play something, anything. Lily felt panic rise in her throat again. I can't. Yesterday was... I don't know what came over me. You played beautifully, Reed said simply. Please. The way he said it, not a command from a famous musician to a janitor, but a request from one artist to another, broke through Lily's resistance. Slowly, she moved to the piano bench. This instrument was even finer than the one from last night, a concert grand with a touch so responsive it seemed to anticipate her intentions. Lily took a deep breath and began to play. She chose Debussy's Clair de Lune, its gentle waves of sound perfect for what she wanted to show him. As she played, she forgot about Reed watching her, forgot about her fears. She thought only of moonlight on water, of peace after sorrow, of beauty that hurts and heals at the same time. When the final notes faded, she looked up to find Reed staring at her, his expression a mixture of wonder and confusion. How do you do that? He asked quietly. Make it sound so alive? Lily thought for a moment. When I play, I don't think about the notes. I think about what they mean, what they make me feel. But how? The question was so earnest, so vulnerable, that Lily felt something shift between them. This wasn't the famous Thomas Reed asking. This was just a man who had lost his way in the very thing he had devoted his life to. Play something for me, she said. The ballad again. But this time, don't think about playing it perfectly. Think about what it means to you. Reed looked doubtful but moved to the piano. Lily stood up, giving him the bench. He positioned his hands over the keys, took a breath, and began to play. It started the same as before, technically perfect but somehow distant. Lily stood quietly, letting him continue. Halfway through, she spoke softly. This piece tells a story. Chopin wrote it after he learned his homeland was invaded. It's about loss, anger, hope that dies and is reborn. She paused, watching Reed's hands move across the keys. What does it make you feel? Reed's playing faltered slightly, then continued. I don't know, he admitted, still playing. I've never thought about it that way. Close your eyes, Lily suggested. Don't think about the audience, the critics, the recording. Just the music. To her surprise, Reed obeyed, closing his eyes as his fingers continued to move. Gradually, something began to change. The notes became more fluid, the pauses more meaningful. When he reached the dramatic middle section, there was a new intensity to his playing, an emotional weight that hadn't been there before. By the time he reached the final measures, Lily could hear the difference, subtle but undeniable. When the last note sounded, Reed opened his eyes, looking slightly disoriented, as if waking from a dream. That was, he began, then stopped, seemingly at a loss for words. Better, Lily said with a small smile. Different. Reed stood up abruptly and walked to the window, his back to her. For a moment, Lily thought she had offended him. Then she realized his shoulders were shaking slightly. Mr. Reed? Are you all right? He turned, and Lily was shocked to see tears in his eyes. For 20 years I've played that piece. Hundreds of times. and I never heard it until today." The raw emotion in his voice touched something deep inside Lily. She understood what it meant to be lost in music and to find yourself there. Reed wiped his eyes, looking embarrassed. "I'm sorry. I don't usually—" "It's all right," Lily said gently. "Music should move us. Otherwise, what's the point?" He looked at her with new appreciation. "You're a remarkable teacher, Lily Chen." She shook her head. "I'm not a teacher. I'm just a—" "Don't say janitor," Reed interrupted. "You're a pianist, an artist. Whether you clean floors or play Carnegie Hall doesn't change that." His words hit Lily like a physical blow. For years she had buried that part of herself, convinced it was gone forever. To hear someone, especially someone like Thomas Reed, affirm it so confidently left her speechless. Reed moved closer, his expression serious. "What happened, Lily? Why did you stop playing?" The question hung in the air between them. Lily felt her chest tighten, old pain rising like a tide. "It's a long story," she said finally, her voice barely audible. Reed glanced at his watch, then back at her. "I have time." And for the first time in 12 years, Lily Chen began to tell her story. Lily sat in one of the chairs by the window, sunlight warming her hands as she gathered her thoughts. Thomas Reed pulled another chair closer and waited patiently. For a man known for his intensity and impatience, he seemed remarkably calm now, as if sensing the importance of this moment. "I was born in a small town outside Shanghai," Lily began, her voice soft but steady. "My father was a factory worker, my mother a teacher. We didn't have much, but they saved for years to buy a second-hand upright piano." She smiled at the memory. It was terribly out of tune. The middle C stuck sometimes, and the finish was scratched. "But to me, it was the most beautiful thing in the world." Reed listened intently, his eyes never leaving her face. "I started playing when I was 5. By 8, I was performing in local competitions. My mother's school principal heard me play and connected us with a music professor from Shanghai. He arranged an audition at the conservatory." Lily's hands moved unconsciously in her lap as if playing an invisible keyboard. "I was terrified. These children had been playing on fine instruments with proper teachers for years. I had my mother's old music books and a piano that wheezed like an old man." "But you got in," Reed said, not a question but a statement. Lily nodded. "They offered me a scholarship. My parents moved to a tiny apartment in Shanghai so I could attend. My father took a second job. Everything was for my music." She paused, remembering the sacrifices her parents had made without complaint, their unwavering belief in her talent. "When I was 16, Professor Yannick Ostrovsky came to give a master class. He was a legend, famously difficult, rarely impressed. He selected 4 students to work with him personally. I was one of them." Reed raised his eyebrows. "That's extraordinary." Ostrovsky was known for being extremely selective. He was— Lily searched for the right word. Demanding, brilliant, terrifying. He saw straight through any technical tricks. Only pure musical truth satisfied him. She could still hear Ostrovsky's voice, his heavy Russian accent, the way he would stop her mid-phrase with a raised hand. "Again, with meaning this time. Make me believe you. For 3 years I worked with him, practiced 8, sometimes 10 hours a day. My hands would cramp so badly at night that I'd cry into my pillow so my parents wouldn't hear." Lily looked down at her hands, now rough from years of cleaning work. "But I was happy. The music was everything." Reed nodded in understanding. "What happened then?" Lily took a deep breath. This was the hard part, the part she had locked away for so long. "When I was 19, Ostrovsky arranged for me to compete in the International Chopin competition in Warsaw. It was my first time leaving China. I was terrified, but also excited. Ostrovsky believed I could win." Her voice faltered slightly. Reed waited, not pushing. "The first rounds went well. I advanced to the finals. The night before my final performance, my parents called from Shanghai. My father had had a heart attack." Lily could still remember that cold hotel room, the crackly phone connection, her mother's voice trying to sound brave. "He's stable," she had said. "Focus on your performance. Make him proud." I wanted to go home immediately, but my mother insisted I stay. My father had worked so hard to give me this chance. "And Ostrovsky," she shook her head. "He said, 'Your father would want you to play. This is your moment.'" Reed's expression darkened slightly. "That seems harsh." "He wasn't wrong," Lily said. "My father would have wanted me to stay. But I was so worried, so distracted. She fell silent for a moment, lost in the memory. The final round. I chose Ballade number 4. It's a mountain of a piece. Technically demanding, emotionally complex. Usually I could lose myself in it completely. Lily's hands tightened in her lap. But that day all I could think about was my father in a hospital bed thousands of miles away. Stage fright? Reed asked quietly. Lily shook her head. I've never feared the stage. But that day I couldn't connect with the music. My mind kept wandering to Shanghai, to my father. I started well enough, but halfway through, she could still see it clearly. The packed concert hall. The judges' stern faces, Ostrovsky in the front row, his eyes boring into her. I made a small mistake, just a wrong note, something that happens to everyone. But instead of letting it go, I fixated on it. Then another mistake. And another. My hands started shaking. I couldn't breathe properly. Reed winced in sympathy. Every performer's nightmare. I stopped completely at one point, just froze. There was this terrible silence. I could hear people shifting in their seats, uncomfortable. Ostrovsky's face. Lily closed her eyes. I've never seen such disappointment. You finished the piece? Reed asked gently. Yes, somehow. It was mechanical, lifeless. I walked off stage and vomited in a trash can. The critics called it the most spectacular collapse in recent competition history. Lily's voice had become flat, emotionless, a defense against the pain of the memory. My father died 3 days later. I was on a plane back to Shanghai when it happened. I'm so sorry, Reed said, and the genuine compassion in his voice almost broke Lily's carefully maintained composure. Ostrovsky called it a waste, said I had let nerves destroy a promising career. But it wasn't nerves. It was, she struggled to explain. It was like my heart was torn in 2 different directions. I couldn't be fully present in the music when half of me was racing toward home. Reed nodded slowly. So you gave up playing? Not immediately. I tried to go back to the conservatory after the funeral. But something had broken inside me. Every time I sat at the piano, I heard those wrong notes, saw those disappointed faces, felt the absence of my father, who would never hear me play again. Lily hadn't allowed herself to think about these memories for so long. Now they poured out like water through a broken dam. A month later, I left the conservatory. My mother was heartbroken, but she didn't try to stop me. I think she understood that music had become tangled up with grief for me. And then, Reed prompted quietly when she fell silent. I worked odd jobs in Shanghai for a few years. Then I had a chance to come to America. A distant relative lived here and helped me get a visa. I thought a fresh start somewhere no one knew me or my failure might help. Lily gestured vaguely around them. I found work where I could. Eventually landed here. There's something peaceful about caring for a concert hall, being near music without the pressure of making it. Reed was silent for a long moment after she finished. When he finally spoke, his voice was thoughtful. Do you know why I invited you to play last night? Lily looked up, surprised by the change of subject. To entertain your friends? A curiosity? Partly, Reed admitted. But also because I saw how you looked at the piano that night I found you on stage. Like it was something precious and dangerous at the same time. I recognized that look. You did? Reed stood up and walked to the piano, running his fingers lightly over its polished surface. I was 12 when I first performed with an orchestra. By 16, I was touring internationally. I never had a normal childhood, normal friendships. There was only practice, performance, more practice. He turned to face her. Music became work. Technical perfection became the goal because it was measurable, controllable. Somewhere along the way, I forgot why I started playing in the first place. And why did you? Lily asked softly. A smile touched Reed's lips. Because it made me feel alive, connected to something larger than myself. The smile faded. But you can't connect when you're focused on not making mistakes. You taught me that yesterday. Lily shook her head. I didn't teach you anything. You did, Reed insisted. When you played that nocturne, I heard what's been missing from my music for years. Truth, feeling, life. He walked back to where Lily sat and did something that shocked her. He knelt down so they were at eye level, his famous face now close to hers. Your story doesn't end with that competition. Lily, one failure doesn't define you. Tears welled in Lily's eyes. It was 12 years ago. And yet when you played yesterday, it was beautiful. Your gift is still there. It never left. A tear slipped down Lily's cheek. I'm afraid, she whispered. Of what? Of feeling that much again. Music opens everything inside you, joy and pain. I've kept myself closed for so long. Safe. Reed's gaze was steady. And are you happy being safe? The question hit Lily like a physical blow. Was she happy? Her little apartment, her routine, her quiet evenings alone. There was peace in her life, yes. But happiness? Before she could answer, there was a knock at the door. Reed's manager, Vivian, entered without waiting for a response, her expression a mixture of annoyance and relief at finding him. Thomas, there you are. You've missed 2 interviews and a photo session. The pre-concert reception starts in an hour and you're not even dressed. She noticed Lily and frowned slightly. Oh, you're still here. Reed stood up slowly. We lost track of time. Lily's been helping me with the ballade. Vivian checked her watch. Well, she'll have to help another time. You need to get ready. For a moment, Lily thought Reed might object. Instead, he nodded. You're right. I'll meet you downstairs in 5 minutes. With a last suspicious glance at Lily, Vivian left, her heels clicking rapidly down the hallway. Reed turned back to Lily. I have to go, but I want to continue this conversation. Lily stood up, suddenly aware of how far she had stepped outside her normal life. You have a concert to prepare for, and I should get back to work. Actually, I'd like you to come tonight. To the concert, Lily blinked in surprise. I can't. I'm working and the tickets are... I'll arrange everything. Reed's voice had regained some of its famous authority, but his eyes remained kind. I want you to hear what you've helped me discover. Before Lily could protest further, he pulled out another card and scribbled something on the back. Give this to the stage door attendant at 7. He'll show you where to go. Reed hesitated, then added, No pressure, Lily, just consider it. As he hurried out to meet his waiting manager, Lily stood alone in the rehearsal room, the card in her hand like a key to a door she had thought permanently locked. That night, after finishing her shift early, Lily stood outside the stage door of Harrington Hall, dressed in her best clothes, a simple blue dress she saved for special occasions. She had nearly talked herself out of coming a dozen times. What was she doing here? This wasn't her world anymore. But something Reed had said kept echoing in her mind. Your gift is still there. It never left. Taking a deep breath, Lily pushed open the door and stepped inside, not knowing that what awaited her would change everything. The stage door attendant, an older man with kind eyes, studied the card Lily handed him. Recognition flickered across his face. Ah, Mr. Reed's guest. Please follow me, he said, leading her through a maze of backstage corridors. Usually Lily cleaned these areas after hours. Now they bustled with activity. Stagehands adjusting equipment, musicians warming up, staff speaking urgently into headsets. They stopped at a small door marked Private. The attendant knocked, then opened it. Ms. Chen is here, Mr. Reed. Lily hesitated in the doorway. Thomas Reed stood before a full-length mirror, adjusting his bow tie. He wore a tailored black suit that made him look even taller. When he saw her reflection, he turned, a genuine smile lighting up his face. You came, he said, sounding pleased but also slightly surprised. I almost didn't, Lily admitted. Reed dismissed the attendant with a nod of thanks. I'm glad you changed your mind. How do I look? He gestured to his concert attire. Very professional, Lily said, feeling awkward. She smoothed her simple blue dress, suddenly aware of how plain it was. Reed must have noticed her discomfort. You look lovely, he said simply, without condescension. Before Lily could respond, Vivian burst into the room, clipboard in hand. 5 minutes, Thomas. She noticed Lily and frowned. What is she doing here? Ms. Chen is my guest, Reed said firmly. She'll be sitting in my personal box tonight. Vivian's eyebrows shot up. That box is for the mayor and his wife. They can sit in the front row. I've already arranged it. Vivian looked like she wanted to object, but instead let out a long-suffering sigh. Fine, but you need to focus now. This program is demanding, and the critics from the New York Times and Classical Review are here. I know, Reed said calmly. Something about his demeanor caught Lily's attention. The nervous energy she had observed in him yesterday was gone. He seemed centered, almost peaceful. Are you nervous? She asked after Vivian left. Reed considered the question. No, he said, sounding surprised at his own answer. For the first time in years, I'm not thinking about the critics or the audience or even the technical challenges. He looked directly at Lily. I'm thinking about the music. What it means. what I want to say through it. A stagehand appeared in the doorway. 2 minutes, Mr. Reed. Reed nodded, then turned back to Lily. The first piece is the ballad we worked on. Listen carefully. He hesitated, then added quietly, I'm playing it for you. Before she could respond, he was gone, striding toward the stage with purpose. Another attendant appeared to escort Lily to the private box, which offered a perfect view of the stage and the magnificent Steinway piano waiting at its center. The hall lights dimmed. The audience fell silent. Thomas Reed walked onto the stage to enthusiastic applause, bowed deeply, and took his seat at the piano. Lily held her breath as his hands hovered over the keys. Then he began to play. From the first notes of Chopin's Ballad No. 1, Lily could hear the difference. The technical precision was still there, Reed's legendary control and accuracy, but something new had been added. A vulnerability, a humanity. The music breathed with emotion that hadn't been present before. As the piece progressed, building in complexity and passion, Lily felt tears well in her eyes. Reed wasn't just playing notes. He was telling a story. She could hear the longing, the struggle, the moments of both darkness and light. When he reached the thunderous conclusion, the final chord seemed to shake the very foundation of the hall. For a moment after the final note faded, there was complete silence. Then the audience erupted in applause unlike anything Lily had ever heard. Not just enthusiastic, but almost stunned, as if they had witnessed something extraordinary and unexpected. Reed remained seated for a moment, head bowed. When he stood to acknowledge the applause, his eyes searched the darkened hall until they found Lily in the box. Even from a distance, she could see the question in them. Lily nodded, unable to speak even if he could have heard her. Yes, she wanted to tell him. You found it. The heart of the music. The rest of the concert passed in a blur of beautiful sound. Reed played with a newfound freedom, as if he had broken through an invisible barrier. When the final piece ended and he took his last bow, the audience gave him a standing ovation that seemed to go on forever. Afterward, the private reception room buzzed with excitement. Critics who had previously described Reed as technically brilliant but emotionally detached now crowded around him, asking what had changed in his approach. I had an excellent teacher, was all he would say, his eyes occasionally searching the room. Lily stood in a corner watching. She didn't belong here among these elegant, important people discussing music as if it were a science to be dissected. She was about to slip away when Reed spotted her and made his way through the crowd. What did you think? He asked quietly, seemingly indifferent to the people trying to get his attention. It was beautiful, Lily said simply. You found the story. Relief crossed his face. Yes. For the first time, I wasn't thinking about playing perfectly. I was thinking about what I wanted the audience to feel. And what was that? A thoughtful expression replaced the relief. That life contains both struggle and beauty. That even in darkness there is light to be found. Lily nodded, understanding completely. Mr. Reed, a portly man in an expensive suit, approached them. The performance of a lifetime. The board wants to discuss extending your residency for the entire season. As Reed was pulled back into conversation, Lily took the opportunity to slip out the door.
She had seen what she came to see.
It was enough. She was halfway down the corridor when she heard Reed calling her name. She turned to see him hurrying after her, ignoring the protests of the people he'd left behind. You're leaving? He asked, slightly out of breath. It's late, and you have admirers waiting. They can wait. Reed took a deep breath. I have a proposal for you. Lily looked at him warily. What kind of proposal? The Harrington Music Foundation runs an education program for talented children who can't afford lessons. They need a teacher, someone who understands that music is more than just technical skill. Lily felt her chest tighten. I'm not a teacher. You taught me more in 2 days than I learned in 20 years of formal training. Reed's eyes were earnest. These children don't need someone to drill them on scales. They need someone to show them the heart of music. But you don't have to answer now, Reed said quickly. Just think about it. He paused, then added, and there's something else. The foundation has a small theater. We hold recitals there, informal performances for students and families. Understanding dawned on Lily. You want me to perform? Just a small piece. When you're ready. No pressure, no critics. Just music for the joy of it. Lily shook her head, fear rising in her throat. I can't. Not today. Not tomorrow. But someday, Reed's voice was gentle but persistent. Your gift doesn't belong hidden away, Lily. It should be shared. I failed once. Publicly, humiliatingly, everyone fails. It's what you do afterward that matters. They stood in silence for a moment, the distant sounds of the reception floating down the corridor. Will you at least come see the program? Meet the students? Reed asked, looking into his hopeful face. Lily felt something shift inside her. A door long locked beginning to open just a crack, letting in a sliver of light. I'll think about it, she said finally. Reed smiled. That's all I ask. 3 months later, a small crowd gathered in the intimate theater of the Harrington Music Foundation. Parents, siblings, and friends filled the seats, programs clutched in excited hands. On stage, a line of chairs held nervous children with instruments of various sizes. In the wings, Lily adjusted a young boy's bow tie and gave an encouraging smile to a girl clutching a violin. Remember, it's not about playing perfectly, she told them all. It's about telling your story through the music, just like we practiced. As the children's recital began, Lily watched from the side, her heart swelling with pride at each small triumph, each moment of genuine expression. These children, many from circumstances similar to her own childhood, were discovering the same joy in music that she had once known. When the last student finished, the program director stepped forward to thank the parents and introduce the final performer. And now, we have a special treat. Our new teacher, Ms. Lily Chen, will play for us. Lily took a deep breath as she walked onto the stage. The small upright piano wasn't the magnificent Steinway from the concert hall, but in some ways it reminded her of that first scratched piano from her childhood. A beginning, not an end. She sat down, adjusted the bench, and placed her hands on the keys. In the front row, Thomas Reed watched quietly, no longer the famous pianist, but simply a friend who had helped her find her way back to music. As Lily began to play Debussy's Clair de Lune, her fears melted away. There was no competition here, no judges, no pressure, only the pure joy of creating beauty and sharing it with others. The music filled the small theater. Speaking of moonlight and gentle waves of peace after sorrow, Lily closed her eyes, letting her fingers tell her story, not of failure and loss, but of rediscovery and second chances. When she played the final shimmering notes, there was a moment of hushed silence. Then applause erupted, led by her students who jumped to their feet with childish enthusiasm. Lily opened her eyes to see Reed's face, glowing with quiet pride. He gave her a small nod that said everything words could not. As she stood to take her bow, Lily realized something profound. The famous pianist who had once mocked her had given her back her voice. And she, the simple woman whose performance had shocked everyone, had taught him that perfection without heart was no perfection at all. They had found in each other what each had lost, the courage to be vulnerable, to risk failure for the sake of truth. And in that exchange, they had both been transformed. Music, Lily now understood, wasn't about flawless performances or critical acclaim. It was about connection, to the notes, to oneself, and to others. It was about having the courage to share your heart, even when it trembled. As she looked out at the smiling faces of her students, Lily knew that her story hadn't ended with that disastrous competition 12 years ago. It had merely taken an unexpected turn, leading her here, to this moment of quiet triumph. And as for Thomas Reed, the critics would continue to marvel at the transformation in his playing, never guessing that his greatest masterpiece wasn't a piece of music at all, but an act of kindness that had restored a fellow artist's soul. Some lessons, Lily realized, couldn't be taught with words or techniques. They could only be learned through living. And some music could only be played once the heart had been broken and mended again, stronger at the broken places.